Corroboration and the resolution of conflicting evidence represent a key analytical phase in workplace investigations, where the investigator moves from simply collecting information to critically testing it. At this stage, the focus shifts from individual statements to the logical comparison of all available evidence in order to determine what is most likely to be true. This process is commonly referred to as assessing external consistency, where testimonial accounts are cross-referenced against independent sources of documentary, digital, and physical evidence. The objective is to determine the probative value of each piece of information, its actual ability to prove or disprove an allegation, and to reach a defensible conclusion on the balance of probabilities, often described as a 50% plus a feather standard. The search for corroboration begins by identifying whether independent sources exist that can confirm or challenge a witness's account. Investigators place particular weight on third-party witnesses who have no personal connection to the complainant or respondent, and therefore no vested interest in the outcome. When multiple independent witnesses, who have not communicated with one another, provide consistent accounts of the same event, the overall convincing force of the evidence increases significantly through cross-corroboration. Where possible, investigators are also encouraged to trace information back to its original source, rather than relying on hearsay, ensuring that evidence is grounded in direct observation rather than second-hand reporting. Testimonial evidence gains its greatest strength when it is supported by objective records and physical data that are less vulnerable to memory distortion or bias. Documentary evidence such as emails, chat logs, personnel files, and attendance records often provides a contemporaneous account of events and is therefore considered highly reliable. In addition, digital footprints including system logs, metadata, badge swipe records, and CCTV footage can independently verify a person's location, actions, or timeline. Physical and environmental verification through site visits further strengthens analysis by allowing investigators to assess whether key elements such as distance, lighting, line of sight, or noise conditions are consistent with the witness's claimed observations. However, the absence of corroboration does not automatically invalidate an allegation. In many cases, particularly those involving limited documentation or few witnesses, investigators must rely more heavily on structured credibility assessment and internal consistency. These situations often present as he said, she said scenarios, where no single piece of objective evidence resolves the matter. In such cases, it is generally not sufficient to decline making a finding solely due to a lack of corroboration. Instead, investigators are expected to assess which account is more plausible when weighed against all available indicators, including consistency, motive, and inherent probability. At the same time, red flags such as false claims of supporting witnesses or patterns of selective memory may weaken the reliability of a narrative and must be carefully evaluated. Ultimately, investigators assess not just individual pieces of evidence, but the overall pattern that emerges when all information is considered together. Even when individual items of evidence appear minor in isolation, their cumulative effect can be significant, with multiple small and consistent indicators forming a coherent picture of what most likely occurred. This grains of sand effect reflects the reality that investigative findings are rarely based on a single decisive fact, but rather on the accumulation of corroborated information. When the totality of evidence reaches a point of sufficiency, meaning there is enough reliable and corroborated information to make a reasoned judgment on the balance of probabilities, the investigator may conclude the analysis without needing to pursue every peripheral line of inquiry.